What is up? What is up, y'all? It's your girl D, aka the Wellness Plug, and this is another educational wellness video. So the topic itself is fluid. It's a wellness practice in regards to like nutrition and diet, but it's also a very spiritual practice as well. So it's a twofer. And depending on your motives and what you're trying to accomplish, I have two different ways that you could do this. So we are talking about fasting, y'all. Fasting. So there are different ways that you can fast, but I just want to talk about what fasting is in general, why it is a key essential ingredient in your wellness routine, and how you can start to implement fasting into your life. So, you know what? Let's just dive into it. We'll get into it and break it down so that it's a little bit easier to understand why I said what I said, why we go in all these different ways today. Okay? Okay. The official definition of fasting is basically a voluntary, so you do it on your own volition, absence of food, drink, or in certain cases, like something that you use to cope or lean towards or become dependent upon, because I'm adding that part in there, okay? But typically when we talk about fasting, it's talking about going without food or drink for a certain extended period of time on your own accord. And so there are many reasons that people fast. Originally, I know fasting to be a spiritual practice before anything, but intermittent fasting and different types of fasts were introduced into the diets of people, like introduced into the dietary conversation, so that certain body types and people with certain health conditions or certain schedules, it's like different types of fasts that can help them burn and lose weight, or simply helps their food digest in certain ways. So there is this like scientific aspect to it as well. And like most people talk about fasting in regards to weight loss. And so like there's different types of fasting. So the ones that are listed right here is time restricted feeding 16 and 8, which is daily fasting for 16 hours and only eating in an 8-hour window of the day. So you can eat whatever you want and well, within reason, right? We're still trying to be healthy, but eat whenever within that 8-hour window. So if it's a little snacky snack, if it's like a full meal, as long as it happens in that 8-hour window, you're good. Then there is the 5-2 method, which is eating normally for 5 days, consuming between 5 to 600 calories on the 2 non-consecutive days. Alternate day fasting, which is alternating between the normal eating days and the fasting days. And I think that's like designed to help like burn, you know, I think it's designed to help you burn your energy on the days that you're not eating. Then you have spiritual fasting, which I think one of the most common forms of spiritual fasting is the Esther fast, which is going like 3 days, 3 whole days without food, typically without water unless you absolutely need it, like if you're taking medication or if you become faint. But it is like a hardcore going without fast. When it comes to spiritual fasting, I think that's one of the more misunderstood forms of fasting, and definitely calls for a little bit of explanation and context. But typically, when you do a spiritual fast is designed to deny your flesh what it desires and craves, and that includes like food, right? Jesus said man cannot survive on bread alone. So the idea is that you replace the bread with more studying, being in the Word of God, and focusing on prayer and meditation and building that connection back with God to where, when you're starving, you're not like relying upon the food and worried about the food. You're worried about, learning something, discovering something within yourself. Fasting is usually done before something really big. They talk about fasting before battles and before grand transitions in life. The Esther fast is named that because Esther was doing this really big thing by trying to save her people. She had to have this discussion that women back in that time, like, she could have immediately been put to death for having the opinion she had. On top of that, for trying to save a group of people that were not the chosen people of that government. Like, she had to have a hard conversation that literally, like, the fate of her people rested on her. And so she denied her flesh for 3 days so that she could focus on prayer. She told her people, deny your flesh as well with me. Like, y'all are going to do this with me because this is big. This is big. And so in the spirit of all my in all of my Esther energy, I also did a 3-day fast before I got married. And why did I do that? Because when you get married, they call a true divine marriage a kingdom marriage. When you walk into the church and you say, this is my person, we're becoming bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, we are one thing. Okay, when you do the big thing and get married, the enemy is mad. Because why? Because he doesn't even want you to have this gift. He doesn't want you to have a helpmate. He wants you to feel isolated and alone and remember all the horrible things that you used to tell yourself. And in the spirit of healing, because y'all know how I feel about healing and being healthy and well, it just really spoke to me that, you know what? The things that me and my husband have been through prove and are a living testimony to God's goodness. And I know the devil is pissed already that we overcame everything that we said we wanted, that, overcame all the things that were meant to keep us down. And like, how amazing would it be if two people who struggled to get through life, felt alone, and went through some really hard stuff. Both of us, our journeys were not easy. And getting here to the finish line and then finding somebody that genuinely loves and accepts you as who you are. All you have to do is show up and you just feel this spiritual fulfillment from this relationship. The only thing that the devil could do is try to not make you want to sanctify it. And so making the decision to get married and doing it as quickly as we did, I was just like, yeah, no, we're not even going to give room for nothing. No, this is about us. We're going to do this. And I, as a wife, because that's what I was becoming, and I was like, I take that role seriously. I take marriage seriously. And I need to show myself, the world, God, like, I need to show everybody just how seriously I take marriage, because as a wife, you go to war spiritually for your husband, for your marriage, for your home. And that involves deep prayer, home management. Like, there's oftentimes we refer to the Proverbs 31 woman, and that woman doesn't get there. That woman doesn't get there by being docile and just kind of letting things fall where they may. No, she goes to war. Okay. And so that's what I did. I said, because I already know we're getting married around Christmas. That is the birth of Christ. That is already a prophecy being fulfilled in motion. And I'm like, for some reason, I feel like this isn't an accident. This isn't something that just came about. It's all in alignment. Everything we're doing is in alignment. And what I don't need is some hater, some fallen angel buster who's mad because we on God's team. I don't need that energy. I don't need anything negative trying to come in and ruin our day. And so I fasted the 3 days before our wedding. I am not I am not Esther, y'all. Like, I'm not gonna lie to y'all. It was really hard not to drink. Now let me tell you, eating, I actually did pretty okay. I think the first day was probably the hardest because I was still cooking. I was still serving my now husband. Like, I was making some good food. And then on top of that, you know how when you make like a meal you always make, and for some reason that day is just extra. It just smells so good. Like, yes, y'all, I had that moment the first day. And I had just like, I had water because I'm really big on hydration, so I was still on my water game. But and I did have coffee. I had 1 cup of coffee in the day, which I know is like, for some of y'all it's hard to imagine more than 1 cup. Hello, I was in my 2 cup era at the time, so I was like, I can dial it back. And I had 1 cup of hot chocolate. I can tell y'all that. But I did like not eat. I didn't snack. I didn't slip a peppermint in there. Like, no, I had hot chocolate, and that is what makes it not an Esther fast, okay? Like, the extras like coffee and hot chocolate do not count. But I think I did pretty darn good considering. And in that time, I was heavy in my Bible. I did Bible study. I journaled a lot too, like, just to see what feelings came up. And there were a lot of things that I noticed that I'm not quite over yet. Like, there were feelings that popped up that I was like, oh, that's a odd that's a odd come up. Like, okay, I haven't thought about that in a while. And it's like friendships that didn't work out, relationships that I had literally had left in the wayside, um, connections that were kind of broken within my family, just like triggers came up, and it was so crazy, but it was a good thing because I was so deep in presence with what I was thinking and feeling and then praying about it that it was easy to process. And so I got just like clarity on loose ends that I needed to tie up in my head, because it was like, I don't need to deal with this stuff. I don't need to take this stuff into 2026. I don't need to take this stuff into my marriage. I have to focus on what's next for our household. And so that was pretty cool. I will say that. And don't think that the devil wasn't mad, y'all. He tried it, because I also had I had created this planner. I created what I call the Big Year Planner. It is a scheduling and productivity tool that I started designing it when my son was in my belly and like fresh out. I started creating it, and it was in production. And when I tell you, like, obviously the holidays make things a lot worse, but like the communication between me and the printing company and the timeline that I was trying to do and things that I was trying to do for promotions just were not lining up, and I could not get my shipment here before Christmas, and that was really, really bothering me. I was like, y'all, I ordered these a month and a half ago. I think I've given enough grace here. Y'all got to tell me something, because people are expecting these as Christmas gifts. So I need to at least have them by Christmas Eve. And Lord, I stomped around this house. I prayed on it. I went to war for that, because hello, this is one of the bigger business endeavors that my husband and I have embarked on. So I'm like, stop messing with me. And sure enough, the delivery got here the day before Christmas Eve, and I packed everything up myself that night on no food, y'all. Packed up everything by hand, and I did like deliveries around town all day on Christmas Eve, or like the day before Christmas Eve. It was crazy. And then the people that I was shipping to were actually close friends of mine, so they were very understanding. Thank you. They were very understanding about the tardiness of the package. However, I was still disappointed, but I was very grateful that the rest of my packages, including the ones for new clients, had made it that day. So it worked out, but that was one of the ways I was tested. And I was like, oh, we're testing my attitude while I'm hungry. Everyone knows I'm hangry, y'all. So that's like, that was pretty on key there. That was pretty on brand for the enemy there to test me in that way. But anywho, what I did take away from my spiritual fast was just the ability that you could hone in and really go to war for the things that you want to happen. And so I truly understand now in the Bible why a lot of people would fast before big decisions or, big transitions or things that they were worried about. Like if they felt like they were lost, they fasted and prayed. And it really does help you focus on prayer and focus in on what's happening, because when you deny your flesh what it's craving, our flesh is a distraction to our spirit. They live in conflict with each other. It's literally in the Bible, tells you what our flesh craves is the opposite of what our spirit craves. So we need to feed our spirit just as much as we feed our flesh. And so I definitely think that spiritual fasting is something that could be practiced like regularly. It's actually a suggestion to fast multiple times, like do it a lot. And personally, I one of the people that I follow on YouTube, her name is Maya Graves. She offered the idea of fasting from something once a week, and I'm totally with her on this. We talked about she had talked about doing like a social media fast, or like just fasting from your phone in general, or fasting from whatever it is. That I personally think, if you notice yourself becoming dependent upon a thing, a substance, or a person, or persons, whatever, then I think it's a good idea to fast from it once a week. The same way that we take our time to Sabbath and rest would be like the same energy you put towards a fast. So for me, especially postpartum, I think fasting is a great idea. Like maybe like our church, when we do Lent, you fast until 12 o'clock. So you don't eat or drink coffee until 12. It's hard. So like for me, one of the things I did that wasn't really an intentional fast, but probably will be next baby, is to not look at my phone or social media until about 10 o'clock. And that mug is on do not disturb while I get myself together, get my house in order. It's just like the fact that you wake up and look at all the bad news of everything going on in the world. It's not a good start to your day. You're supposed to start the day with meditation, prayer, focus, and define your day. Not let your day define your attitudes. You know what I mean? So like, I do think it's a good idea to find a way to implement fasting into your wellness routine spiritually, for your spirit. It's definitely a must. Now, when we talk about nutritional fasting, I don't call myself an expert on that, because that is not something that I felt like I needed to do to lose weight. But I do encourage you, if you are on a weight loss journey, I've known a lot of people that do the 16-8 fast, where you only eat in that 8-hour window of the day. And mind you, they're still drinking water, they're exercising. Like, this doesn't work by itself. Weight loss has multiple components that all work together. So it's important that you do the research, you find out what fast works for you, and then go from there. Now, on the other hand, I did do a 40-day fast. So in regards to nutrition and weight loss, I did a 40-day fast because hello, we have to tie in spirituality into it anyway. I was going to do a 30-day fast, and if you notice, transformations in the Bible happen in 40s, like 40 days. Jesus was fasting and then he was tempted. It rained for 40 days and 40 nights. We have this theory that it takes 40 days to make a complete transformation. So I just tested the theory out, okay? So for 40 days, I went without alcohol, sweets, and fried foods. 40 days. I promise you, I did not have not nan cheesecake, not a piece of chocolate, nothing. The only sugar I got was if I drank it, and y'all know from my previous weight loss, when I shared how I previously lost weight, like I don't do sugary drinks like Kool-Aid and stuff. I have to do that in doses, like a shot, because I have weaned myself off of the sugar addiction, besides when it comes to dessert, okay? But even still, like, I do have my fill. Once I'm capped out, I'm pretty capped out. But when we talk about chocolate and cheesecake and all the fat girl dreams, I am there for it, okay? I'm hungry. But I did it for almost a month and a half. It was 40 days. I did not drink. Like, not drinking was easy because I haven't really had the urge to drink for real since having the baby. Like, you don't drink for 9 months, so it's easy to just stop. Like, I've never been a person that wants to be ruled by a habit or a coping mechanism. So like smoking, drinking, like those are easy for me to quit on my own when I decide, like, it has to be my decision. Right. But like once I stop, I'm just like, I'm done. So drinking wasn't really hard. And fried food is not that hard if you're not eating out. I will say that. What made it hard about fried food was finding a place to eat that didn't serve fried food, or, my husband isn't fasting. So he's like, where's the burger? Where's the fries? And I'm like, do they have a snack wrap? Do they have a salad? Like, so that was the harder part, but the hardest part was not getting a piece of chocolate cake or not eating the cheesecake that my father-in-law was eating right in front of me when I was at their house, or like, I am a sucker for sweets, and that was really hard. So, the result of that though was the body that I have now. And the body I have now, it was like the last little bit of baby weight. It was just the last little, you could tell, like, it just kind of melted off. And now I can focus on toning and conditioning my body. So if I am going to tell you about fasting, I will say that the 40-day fast that I did, I think is proven hands down. On my period, I might have maybe maybe a lemonade, like a smoothie or something to satisfy that sweet craving. But or on a day where I've got a lot to do, maybe I have that extra cup of coffee because I can allot for that within my calories because I'm not eating a dessert. And cutting out fried food, we've already talked about this, okay? Like, don't get me wrong, I love me some soul food. I love me some fried chicken. I love me some French fries. If y'all know me during pregnancy, like, my son is probably made up of ice cream and French fries because that's literally all I ate when I was pregnant in that last trimester. But, like, when you know that you're doing this for a bigger cause, it's really easy to say no. And so meal prepping, telling your friends ahead of time, in spiritual fasting, they encourage you to not tell everybody. They don't want you to look all sad and what is it, your face downcast. Like, it's not supposed to be boasted about because then the intention is lost, right? But in the sense of the 40-day fast where I did it for weight loss, like, I think it's helpful to tell people because then you have accountability partners. You've got people who would normally shove something in your face. Like, you've got them backing off. Like, oh, let me not even pull out this pumpkin pie for you, or, I don't know, whatever your circumstances are. But, like, it's helpful to have help. And so I encourage you to find something that you lean on. Maybe it's salty foods. Maybe it is sweets. Maybe it's eating out. Maybe it's no fast food. Think about how a fast would help you and benefit you. That's only 40 days. So literally the next day, I pinky promise you, the next day was my birthday. I did this 40 days before my birthday. So the next day was my birthday, and I asked my husband to get me Wingstop and Cheesecake Factory and a piece of cheesecake from the Cheesecake Factory. And I'm going to tell you too, the next day, my stomach was toe up. That Wingstop did not sit right. And I love Wingstop, and we have a pretty decent Wingstop too. So yeah, I was just like instantly regretting it. But if you feel the need to fulfill yourself that day, satisfy that craving, you can do it at the end of your 40 days. So it's not like this end all be all. And if you go into it with the right attitude, you can be very excited for the end results. And then when you get there, you can be like, girl, you did that. You did that. And I'm so proud of you. And like, yes, I did. Yes, I did. And then, the compliments that you get from everybody also help because they're noticing that progress that you took. And then they're asking you, what did you do? It's like, oh, I just cut out sweets for 40 days. Oh, I just stopped drinking, lemonade. I didn't get coffee in the morning. You have to find what works for you. But if you want to go off of what I did no alcohol, no fried food, and no dessert, which are all three like this cluster of bandits when it comes to why people can't lose weight. So let your friend D tell you what changes you need to make. Okay. So that is what I have to say about fasting. So fasting, again, is the denial or purposeful going without something. Spiritually, you are starving your flesh to feed your spirit. And so therefore focusing on prayer, connection with God, releasing anxieties and stress onto Him. And it's really a good idea to do that before battles, before spiritual battles, before big things happen to you. You get married, you're buying a house, you have a new job, you know that you're going into a transition. Maybe you're getting a divorce, maybe you're, fighting a good fight in some other way. But spiritual fasting is definitely a tool that I would lean on. And then when it comes to fasting for nutrition and weight loss, try it out. Try it out and see what happens. Or even have like a fast where you don't eat sweets for 6 days and you have one day. Most people call that a cheat day. But again, remember, words shape reality. So when you're allowed to cheat, you're allowed to rig the system. And then it encourages you to do so in other ways. So frame it how you need to, but I definitely think fasting is something you need to incorporate in your wellness routines if you do not do so already. And if you are new to fasting, I want you to drop in the comments a question you have about fasting. And then if you are not new to fasting, not new to this, you true to this, tell us something that you fasted for and how you benefited from it. Whether that was spiritual or for weight loss, tell us a time that you fasted and you saw something come from it. That is all I have for you today, my loves. I will see you guys again soon for the next video. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe if you are not part of the family already. And I will see you next time. Bye.